So, a couple of weeks ago, news broke out that apparently Microsoft was discontinuing their experiment with Windows 10X. At first, I thought, thank God, they understood that 10X design was going nowhere. But then, new info came out, and apparently they just decided that having two operating systems, Windows 10 and 10X, was just too expensive for them, and so they decided to have just one operating system with the design of course, 10X. And they called it Windows 11, which at first I thought was a joke. It's such a bad name from a promotional point of view, which is the whole reason why they skipped 9 as well, but apparently they went for Windows 11. So let's give it a look. First of all, let me say that many people say that Windows 11 seems inspired by Plasma, just like Windows 10 seems inspired by Plasma, just like Plasma seems inspired from Windows, just like Zorin OS seems inspired by Plasma, just like Zorin OS seems inspired by Windows, and so on. There's all kinds of stuff in there, and honestly, I don't really trust any of them. I don't think they are valid design point of views, because when you're doing the same thing with the same scope, the same kind of users, it's very normal to have similar kind of designs. The bottom bar with your apps, stuff like that, having the same light theme, it's not that similar. And actually another KDE contributor, Philip Fila, did a blog post citing all of the design differences between Plasma and Windows. You can find it in the KDE Planet. It's very cool. But what if we actually look at what Windows 11 is? So first of all, let me say that they revamped the look of the installation process, and thank God they did, because it was really bad. Like, that blue screen was horrible. Now we have a static image with blur and gradients. It's still just a static image, but it's fine. And they also have a cooler look with rounded corners. It's really weird because Microsoft design was always about square corners, so why do we get rounded corners on the installation media now? But let's skip that. First of all, let me say big thumbs down to not asking the user about their preferred keyboard layout, because right next to it they ask for your password for the Office account, which of course you should all have. You can't create an account on your Windows machine without an Office Microsoft account unless you disable internet. Yes, it's still there. And it's really bad because you cannot actually type out your password if you're not using the same keyboard layout that they've decided, so pretty bad. Instead, what surprised me, I think it's a really good design decision, is that they added a list of possible use cases that the user might want. And they ask you, what are you going to use your computer for? Are you a student taking notes, or an office manager like doing spreadsheets and stuff like that, which I guess customize the default application that gets shipped in Windows. I think it's a really good idea. We should do something like that because it really helps you understand what the user is going to do with your operating system and lets you adapt the operating system to the user. Thumbs up for that. Then we actually get to Windows 11. And first of all, rounded corners everywhere. And regarding those, I have a question to Microsoft. That is, why? What is the point? Because Microsoft always went with square corners in the past, and it was original. If you look at all operating systems, the major ones, they all use rounded corners except for Windows. And it makes sense. It helps the user understand and differentiate between operating systems. It was an original design situation. And they just decided to go scrap that and go with rounded corners for no reason, because they don't look prettier. If you look at all designs of, not old yet, but Windows 10, if you look at the square corners there with the transparency, it's really well done. I really like it. So I don't really see the point of this step back with the design. Why rounded corners? And that is especially true if you consider that Microsoft, you have an issue with consistency. We know it, you know it, there's a consistency issue. So what they have done about it? Well, they decided to switch to rounded corners, which they cannot guarantee for all applications, meaning that older applications will still get square corners, whereas the newer one will have rounded corners. So you cannot even know when opening up an application whether it will have rounded corners or not. That's so inconsistent. I really don't get this whole design decision. So -1. Then, first thing that you think when you see the new design is it's really pretty. And that's fair. I've also seen many Plasma users say this, but then I took Windows 10 screenshots and I compared to Windows 11 design, and it's not that prettier. Like, Windows 10 was already pretty good at design if you don't give a look to the older stuff. Again, inconsistency, but start menu, panel, transparency, blur, really pretty. I liked it. And it's not that prettier with Windows 11. It's not a step forward, not a significant one at least. And then you have the start menu, and that one is really a step back. I really don't see any reason why they would decide to ship that one over tile menu. And the reason is that tile menu was really good with lots of features and customizable launcher, whereas the new one is so minimalistic that it doesn't do its job, in my opinion. So if it was like a minor Linux distribution, I would just say, yeah, it's a minimalistic app launcher and that's pretty much it. But this is Microsoft. They have a research and development budget that we'll never see, and this is what they came up with. I mean, the old tile menu was worth the money. It was really good. It was nice to see. It had the concept of live tiles, which never really took off, but it was a good idea at least at the beginning. And now we just have this menu that you can't do anything with. And then we can go forward and open up the file manager. And that's really where everything collapses, because the file manager is still the same one from, I don't know, Windows 7, something like that. I'm just kidding, but the design scenes from that era, it's really bad. And it's really inconsistent, which is the whole point again. You also get some other new options, such as seeing all your open windows. And if you just look at the design of that button when you press it, if you look at the bottom bar with the virtual desktops and so on, it's ugly. It's surprisingly ugly. I think they will change this later on because this design is not worth it. And then you have the last button, the new button at least in the task manager, that is widgets, which is something that slides from the left and opens up a lot of widgets with, you know, the Google New or Google Discover kind of thing. So Meteo, stocks, and news. And I'll be fair here, that is actually something that I really envy, because it really sounds useful. If I could just open up my computer in the morning, press a button and see all of the news stories. I usually do this on my phone with Google News or Press Reader I use. Doesn't matter. But if I could do it from Plasma, maybe fetching the RSS feeds from news, that would be really cool. Also see what the forecast of the weather is going to be. Sounds useful. So that button I actually liked. I've seen many people saying it's useless, I have my phone anyway, but I spend a lot of time on my computer and I would like to have the same stuff that I have on my phone also on the desktop, so I like it. And then finally we can give a look to older applications which are still terrible looking on Windows. They have done this thing for which they have changed their style, so buttons are now, they feel newer, and same for scroll bars, which have been rightfully hated on Twitter because it's not that much of an improvement, let's say, but the general design is the same. You still have the control panel with all of the actually useful options there. Not that impressive, you still get those. And what they've done to adapt even the latest like settings applications to the very new design with rounded corners and everything is just give them rounded corners and that's it. They change pretty much nothing else, and that's not enough. I think you can't just redesign the shell, which would be like for Plasma it would be Plasma, without actually also working on the application. So sure, we KDE are working on improving the look of Plasma, but at the same time we're doing the same with applications, origami stuff like that, and that is how it's done. Just putting rounded corners everywhere and expecting that look to fit to the new look of the shell is not going to work. It's going to be inconsistent, and I think it really boils down to that. They have introduced a new design, a new kind of design that has no real advantage compared to Windows 10, and it lacks many stuff and it's just more inconsistent. So I don't see the point of Windows 11 right now, which makes me think, since Microsoft isn't stupid, that the build images that we've seen are actually pretty old. We've seen because they leaked, so not reliable. I think they're really old, and I think that Microsoft has in store something really new to announce at their video stuff, the conference coming up in a few days. So I think that they will at least surprise us with something like a completely new file manager. At least I hope so, because Windows 11 as is right now in the images that leaked is not going to ship. It's bad, and that's all I have to say about it.